Welcome to the WBB sharing session. My name is Stephen Nason. I am the director of the World Bachelor of Business program, and I would like to tell you about one of the most exciting programs that I know of, World Bachelor of Business. I'm just going to talk for about 15 minutes. I'm going to talk about some boring things, what the program's about, how to apply, and then I'm going to turn it over to two current WBB students and one WBB alum. And they will wrap up, they'll talk for another 30 minutes, and we should have time for questions and answers. If you have any questions at all while I'm talking, please feel free to just interrupt, raise an electronic hand, or just send a chat and I'll try to respond. So, World Bachelor of Business program. Let me tell you what it's all about. The World Bachelor of Business program is really a program for future leaders. It is 3 world-class universities. My computer is lagging. 3 continents, 3 degrees, 1 unparalleled experience. Let me explain. The WBB is a joint program between 3 universities. Between 3 universities. The University of Southern California in Los Angeles, where students spend their first year. HKUST in Hong Kong. Bocconi University in Italy. And the way it's structured is everybody in the program, they spend their first year at the University of Southern California, one of the top undergraduate business schools in North America, well known not just for business, but for all its professional schools, as well as cinema and football. Students spend their second year. They come to HKUST. You all know about Hong Kong, HKUST, one of the top business schools in Asia. The students spend their third year at Bocconi University in Milan, also one of the top universities in Europe. Very strong connections with consulting and finance, as well as, you probably know, Milan is the fashion capital, one of the fashion capitals of Europe. And the fourth year, the students return to whichever school they like the best. So the students, the WBB students, by the time they graduate, they will have gone to 3 great universities, 3 continents, and they get a degree from each university. So not one degree, not a joint degree, but they get the same USC degree like everyone else from USC, the same HKUST degree like everyone else from HKUST, and the same Bocconi degree. So you graduate, you get 3 degrees. It's the only one of its kind program that I know of like this in the world. So this whole program, with all of this international travel, the focus is really on critical thinking with intense, rigorous internationalism to develop global leaders. That's what this program is about. So if that's something that you think you might be interested in, I think this is a good program to consider. Okay, so WBB, we attract students from all over the world. This is where the WBB students have come from. This is where WBB students have gone to work after they graduate from the program. This is where we have taken WBB students as part of the WBB program for study trips and such. So this is sort of the map of WBB. As you can see, we are a rigorously, deeply international program. So at each of the schools, you will take courses that speak to the core competencies of each of the 3 universities. This is a list of all the courses. I'm not going to go through them in detail, but each of the schools also offers some specific courses just for WBB students. I'll talk a little bit more about those in a minute. So, WBB students immerse themselves in diverse cultures and working, studying, playing with local students at each of the 3 universities. By the end of year 3, 100% of WBB students have done an internship or launched their own startup. In fact, by the end of year 3, the vast majority of WBB students have done multiple internships on multiple continents. A lot of WBB students graduate having done internships on 3 different continents, something unmatched by most students at most universities. We also, each university has, because you're a full-time student at each university, you're entitled to use the resources at each of the universities. That means you can use the Career Center at each of the 3 universities when you're looking for a job. You can attend industry talks at each of the 3 universities and career fairs, company visits. So there are more resources devoted to WBB than almost any other, in terms of career, than almost any other program that I know of. All right, these are some of the companies that WBB students have gone to work at. A lot of the big companies find WBB students very attractive because, as you can imagine, with all of this international travel, WBB students develop expertise solving a wider range of different problems than most students have access to. And because WBB students become very strong with critical thinking, they become attractive to some of the top companies. Okay, so if you're interested in WBB, because it's a program with 3 universities, our admissions schedule is on the North American model, because the students who are interested in WBB are usually also interested in other North American schools, top North American schools. So the deadline for applying is December 1st. We make our admission decision usually by April 1st. And it's a firm offer. It's not a conditional offer. And the deadline for whether you want to accept or not is May 1st. All applications are initially through USC on the Common App. And you select WBB as your first choice. And then all 3 schools, we look at all the candidate pools together. To apply, we require the standard things, high school transcripts from grades 9 to 12, TOEFL, language certificates, whatever criteria you have from your school or your region. So if you're an IB student, we look at the predicted IB scores. We look at the Hong Kong test if you're from the local school. Just the full admission package. Of course, letters of recommendation. We also ask students to do an online interview and then a face-to-face interview, later group face-to-face interview. Okay. Sounds good, right? But here's the kicker. WBB, we are not a government-sponsored program. We are a completely private program, which means that the WBB students need to pay the regular tuition. So when you go to USC, You pay the regular USC tuition, which is $60,000. At HKUST, the tuition here is about $210,000 and 18,000 euros, which is about 200,000 Hong Kong, while you're at Bocconi. So it is more comparable to the tuition you pay at a typical North American university. But in fact, I argue it's actually a good value. Let me explain why. If you go to USC for 4 years, you pay $60,000 each year and you get 1 degree. But if you go to WBB, you pay the USC tuition for 1 year. The other years at HKUST and Bocconi, you pay about a third, 40% of the USC tuition. And then when you graduate, you've ended up paying about 2/3 of the total equivalent North American tuition, but you get 3 degrees. And WBB students have been quite successful at landing really nice jobs. All right. We do offer scholarships. The scholarships are all merit-based. Usually they're for a quarter tuition or half tuition, but they're just completely merit-based. Okay, so once again, World Bachelor of Business. 3 world-class universities, 3 continents, 3 degrees, 1 unparalleled experience. Okay, I hope that's piqued your interest a little bit, but now what I would like to do is turn it over to Nicole, who is a current WBB student, Kelly, who's a year 4 WBB student, and Dylan, who just graduated and is now working at HSBC. So, Nicole, would you like to take it away? All right, Nicole's having a little bit of trouble unmuting.
Maybe we can go for Kelly first when
Okay,
we were
Kelly,
waiting for Nicole to come back.
You want to go in? Apologies for the technical issues. We practiced this ahead of time and it worked perfectly. Okay, Kelly, why don't you go first?
Yeah, sure. First, I can introduce a little bit about myself and my WB experiences. That's a picture of me and my friend Rebecca in the World Bachelor in Business program. We're at Machu Picchu as part of the Global Social Impact Program, which Nicole will talk about, so look forward to that. And I was raised in Hong Kong and I studied at the King George V School, which is an international school. As such, I studied the International Baccalaureate program and I studied maths, physics, economics, Chinese, English, and history. And while studying university, I developed a really strong interest in economics and in financial markets. At the same time, due to my international experience, growing up and meeting a lot of people from all across the world, I really wanted to have the opportunity to study abroad. And so I was looking for a program and I found World Bachelor in Business, which addresses those two interests perfectly. And so I applied and then to World Bachelor in Business, and then I never looked back. And then next I can talk a little bit about my experiences. In my first year at USC, I joined the USC figure skating team, and that was a really great experience. Everyone in the team was very supportive and they helped me to actually learn to skate. And this is one of the most wonderful things about University of Southern California, is that there's a very inclusive community and they're all very supportive. And you'll find that this is also a common theme among all three universities as well. But apart from that, something that was truly great about USC is the opportunity to get to know the local community outside of the university as well. So for example, for the LA Festival of Books is co-hosted by the LA Times, and they bring in a lot of great authors from all across the United States. So there are all of that sorts of opportunities to get to know the culture of the United States and to get to know people from all across the country. And then my second year, I joined some more career-oriented activities. So for example, I participated in the Peace Summit for Emerging Leaders, as well as the Talent Amplifier program. The Talent Amplifier program is an opportunity to go into an asset management firm and then shadow the chief executive for a day. And these opportunities I was able to find through the HKUST Career Center. And so this is also something that will be continually highlighted, is how invaluable Bachelor in Business is, because it gives students access to the resources and the alumni networks of 3 different universities. In my third year, I went to Bocconi University, and unfortunately due to COVID, I wasn't able to go in person. However, this didn't prevent me from engaging with the community and really participating in various sorts of extracurriculars. So for example, I was a writer for Tra I Leoni, Bocconi's newspaper, and again, they were a very supportive community. Even though I was in Hong Kong, they tried to arrange meetings at a suitable time. But the experience that I really want to highlight is the Hong Kong International Case Competition. During this year, I was studying at Bocconi University. However, I represented USC to go to a case competition hosted by HKUST. And this experience just really goes to show that World Bachelor in Business students are students of all 3 universities. And that is always there no matter which university you're at the moment. And then I will move on to a little bit about my internship experiences. Something that students might find with a lot of business programs is that they're quite specialized. And WBB is really unique because it gives students exposure to a wide breadth of business areas, for example, marketing or operations management. And this breadth has really helped me to pursue internships in different areas of business. So for example, I've interned as a marketing intern, I've delved a little bit into risk analytics, into green and sustainable finance. And all these opportunities, I was really lucky to be able to find through the 3 different career centers, through the strong WBB alumni network, really engaging with current WBB students, WBB hosted activities, and more. And that is truly something that's very unique about WBB. Because I was able to explore so many different business areas, I was able to determine what I really want to pursue in the future, which is asset management. And so I will be returning to BlackRock as an analyst in the next year. And now I will pass the floor to Nicole to share a little bit about her experiences as a year 2 World Bachelor in Business student.
Hi, everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties just now. I'm back and I'm happy to share with you guys something about like why I chose the WBB program and also some of my experiences in these 2 years. So I'm a World Bachelor in Business student in class of 2024. So I'm in my 2nd year studying in HKUST now. I'm born and raised in Hong Kong, and I went to St. Paul's Co-Educational College for secondary school. I did the HKDSE curriculum, and my electives are chemistry, biology, and economics. So I think a lot of people have misconceptions that maybe it's easier to apply to WBB through an international school or maybe like the IB curriculum. But in fact, we welcome students from all academic background, and we also have a test optional policy. So even if you're DSE, we really welcome you to apply, and that's what makes WBB so diverse. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I can share a little bit about my YWBB story. So at that time, like 2 years ago, I was just like everyone else. We're all confused about what we want to do in uni because there are just so many choices, so many countries. But once I found out about WBB, it has been my first choice because of all these reasons. First of all, I'm really passionate about culture and traveling around. And I know that if I pick a regular university, I can most likely only be able to go on maybe one exchange program, go to a school for 2 or 3 months and come back. But in WBB, we can really stay in a country for at least a year. and go to another country and another country for like 3 countries. And it really helps us fully immerse into the culture and get to meet the local people and students. So I think it offers a very full experience for me to experience the culture and practices around the world. So that leads to the second point. As someone who is born and raised in Hong Kong, I mean, I think everyone has struggled about whether you want to study abroad or in Hong Kong. So I know that even I'm very passionate about going around the world, but especially when you're doing business, Asia and Hong Kong is a very important business hub, and it's very good to know how businesses work here. So I think WBB is a really good balance for me to stay in Hong Kong for a year and study abroad for the rest of the years. So I think that's something you guys should also consider. WBB also has a smaller cohort of 40 to 50 people. So we have a really tight-knit community. And whenever you need help or you need advice, you can just reach out to anybody. We really get to know everyone. So that's really suitable for my learning style. So on the right side, more on the career point of view, I know that I personally want to work in either a multinational company or work abroad. So WBB prepares me really well mentally, culturally, and also demonstrates to employer that we have the ability to adapt to different cultures. And as Professor Nathan has mentioned, we also have resources and network from all 3 schools because we are considered full-time students but not exchange students. Now I can share a little bit about my year 1 at USC. You can see a lot of Zoom pictures here, so you can probably tell I didn't physically go to USC, but I did the semester online because of COVID. So all the classes are on Zoom. However, I really get to experience the American teaching and learning style. For example, everyone in the class would be really willing to voice out their opinions. They always unmute themselves during the class and say whatever they want. And the professors also really encourage us to discuss. So as someone coming from a local school, it's a really huge culture shock, and I learned a lot from these people. Also for clubs and societies, I got to join a lot of them. I can highlight one that's the AATP, it's Asian American Tutorial Project. So in normal times, we'll go to Chinatown and LA to tutor the kids there. We will help them learn English and also integrate into the community. So during COVID, I was paired with a child from Chinatown, Los Angeles. We do Zoom tutoring every weekend. So WBB students really get to know the community, even if we're not physically there. So in the middle, you can see the Global Social Impact Project, and we, in normal times, we'll go to Peru or Brazil to present to the field partners. So we get to work with a social enterprise or nonprofit in North America. And in South America, and we'll work on some consulting projects. So they will tell us what problems they're facing, and our group of students will investigate that for 2 or 3 months and present our recommendations. So this year, even if it's virtual, we get to work with partners from all over the world, which was a very good experience. So on the right side, you can see as a year 1 student, I had some work experience this year. And I tried to experience different industries like marketing, Teach for Hong Kong, which is a nonprofit, consulting. And I also had the opportunity to go on a virtual job shadowing in a US company through the USC Career Center. So that really amplifies the point that WBB students are supported by the career centers at all 3 schools. Now, I just started my year at HKUST, but I can still share a little bit about it since it's also really exciting. So being involved in clubs and societies is a really big part of every WBB student. So I am the vice president of Dawn Advisory this year, which is a consulting club that is started by other WBB students who are in the cohorts above us. So some students may wonder that if we only have a year at each school, will it be kind of difficult to get involved in extracurricular activities? But the answer is no, because the WBB cohort is very, very supportive, and they all in fact, a lot of the clubs and societies on HKUST campus are also started by previous WBB students, and they will recruit WBB students to become their next new members. So it's really easy to get involved in whatever you're interested in, whether it's academic or non-academic. So beyond campus life, we can also get to meet a lot of local and international students and become a tourist in our home city. Something I really want to mention is I really love the campus at HKUST because the library and classroom, they all have a very pretty view, and it's a really good environment for everyone to study in. So that's almost it for my part, and I hope you learned a little bit more about my experience. And now I'll pass it over to Dylan to talk a bit about his experience.
Dylan suddenly disappeared. So maybe we can take this time to answer the question first, because I can see that there are a couple questions in the chat.
Okay, I'll start answering the questions while Dylan comes back. Okay, so one sent a question that said, are there any full scholarships? We don't usually offer full scholarships. Occasionally we do, maybe once a year, one person a year or something. Most of the scholarships are quarter time and half time. The scholarships are based totally on merit. So what we do is we look at everything. Now with WBB, we are not focused on getting just the top academic performer. You have to be strong with academics, but what we're really looking for, what we're really trying to identify is people who have the potential to develop into global leaders. So we do look at the academics. We look at the IB scores, we look at your exam scores, we look at your grades, but we also look at the interviews, how well you do in the interviews. We look at the letters of recommendation. We look at the whole package. And this speaks to the second question. One of the questions was, what is the average IB score? So IB scores last year ranged from about 37 to 45 out of 45. The average was in the low 40s, about 40. But we did not make offers to some people who had higher IB scores, and we made offers to some people who had lower IB scores because we're looking for the best overall candidate, not just any one specific measure. Another question was, how many students receive scholarships? Typically, about a third, sometimes 40% receive scholarship offers. That's normally about the amount that we did. Of course, we take mainland students. We take students from everywhere, all over the world, and we love diversity. We like diversity. So the WBB students just come from all over the place. Usually we have 2 or 3 or 4 mainland students in the program, but then they really come from all over the place.
Since Dylan is back, maybe we can let Dylan share first, and then we can cover more questions later on. So I think the students are busy typing the question in as well.
Sure. Welcome back, Dylan.
Thank you. My guys, my apologies. But I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to meet you all. So my name's Dylan Hunter. I'm originally from Denver, Colorado in the United States. And I was lucky enough to graduate from the WBB program this year in May of 2021. So I'll talk a little bit about my background, why I applied, why WBB, and kind of walk you guys through my experience and how incredibly grateful I am to WBB and the impact that the WBB and all of its faculty and students had on my life. So a little bit about me. I grew up in a very sleepy suburb in Denver, Colorado, kind of in the middle of the States. And actually, I went to an international public high school there, and I had a guidance counselor recommend WBB to me. And she said, told me about the World Bachelor in Business, knew I wanted an international experience, and encouraged me to apply. And so I ended up, applying, and was incredibly lucky to have this experience. And I knew that I wanted to live internationally and challenge myself, and go a little bit against the grain in terms of my education. And WBB has allowed me to do that and more, thankfully. And so, during my time in the World Bachelor in Business, I've been able to do some pretty cool things, and I've been very fortunate. First of which, I was part of the HKUST rowing team, which was wonderful. My second year, I was also a member of the investment circle at HKUST, and at Bocconi University in Milan. My small claim to fame is that we were the Italian national lacrosse champions, which is a sport not very big in Italy, but it was a very fun experience. And entirely thanks to WBB, I've also been very lucky to have had work experience on 4 different continents by the time I'm 22 years old. So I've been able to work with Women from the Global South, which is a sustainable fashion startup in Rio de Janeiro. I've worked for the San Antonio Spurs, the NBA team in Texas. I've worked at Schulte Research, which is an equity research firm in Singapore and Hong Kong. I've worked for Asia Sports Tech, which is a venture capital and capital advisory firm focusing on tech companies in Asia. And finally, I interned and now work full-time with HSBC as an electronic fixed income, currency, and commodities analyst in their global markets division. And also my favorite food by far is xiaolongbao. And so Hong Kong is a good place for me to be full-time. But I told you a little bit about why I applied, but let me walk you through, what my thought process was and how I really ended up in this incredible program. And so, originally, actually, it's funny, but WBB is the only business program I applied to. I applied to a lot of colleges. I knew I wanted to do something international. And in the end, my final offers were the University of Pennsylvania, the World Bachelor in Business program, and Georgetown University in Washington, D.C. And it was very interesting because I was at first, I didn't really know what to make of it. I was, all these programs were very different in very different cities. And what really set the bar for me was I actually had a meeting with the director of the entire program of the entire Los Angeles program in LA. And he sat me down, he took time out of his day. All these other schools, it was incredibly busy. It was hard to get in touch with people. And he took time out of his day to buy me a coffee. And he said, Dylan, the World Bachelor in Business, and I maintain this today, but the World Bachelor in Business is not for everybody. But I will tell you this, is that if you feel comfortable taking a calculated risk on your education, on doing something that is challenging, but incredibly rewarding in the end, I promise you it will pay off. And that conversation changed my life. And for that reason, I chose the World Bachelor in Business and where I am today. And I'm incredibly grateful to all of the faculty, all of the students in the program. I owe where I am to them. And so for the next slide, essentially, I'll kind of walk you through a little bit about the unique WBB experience that I've had. Carmen, if we could change slides. Thank you very much. So WBB is a very unique experience, as I'm sure you've already gathered. But at USC, it's filled with American college football games, which if you've never been to one is pretty fun. You arrive, it's a very quintessential American college experience. You receive an amazing education at USC. Los Angeles is a beautiful city, and you really get to experience, kind of what it's like to be a full-time USC student. So that was amazing. And then in Hong Kong, as somebody who grew up in a suburban town in the US, where everybody looked like me, everybody ate the same food, did the same things. Coming to Hong Kong was incredible. And it was it turned my life upside down in the best way. This picture was at Rugby Sevens that I did with my friends. And we saw obviously the beautiful HKUST campus, met new people, ate amazing food and learned and really got to go to some incredible courses and utilize the amazing resources that HKUST offers. And finally, Bocconi, in Italy. Italy is an amazing place. Again, I think the directors did a great job of picking 3 great food cities and experiential cities. So that picture was at we went to the Formula One race and got to see Ferrari win for the first time in a very long time, which a lot of my fellow friends who stayed in the States that's kind of my claim to fame was all these neat experiences. And so what I will harp on though is that I think the greatest benefit of WBB, and I tell everybody this, is twofold. The education is incredible, from a job standpoint, it's amazing. But the two most beneficial things, in my opinion, have been relationships with students and relationships with faculty. And I think what WBB does such a great job of, by nature of the size of each cohort, is promote this almost familial sense amongst us. So when you're experiencing these 3 different cities with only 50 other students who were hand selected from around the world, I mean, we developed an incredibly close relationship that still maintains to this day. My best friends, one's Russian, one's Egyptian, one's Guatemalan, and one's from Hong Kong, which I think there's very few programs in the world where you can say that. And where I actually at HSBC, I received my job, on a recommendation from a friend. And WBB does such a great job of fostering and promoting, joint success amongst all its students. And we really want to see each other do well and succeed. And we do that every day. From a faculty standpoint, I mean, you have truly unparalleled access to some of the most amazing faculty in the world. And at HKUST, actually, some of my internship experiences at Asia Sports Tech and Schulte Research doing equity research were thanks to HKUST alumni and WBB, HKUST and WBB faculty that connected me with professionals who were looking to hire and or enabled me to kind of find professional success in that regard, which is incredibly unique to WBB. And so finally, onto my last slide, or second to last slide, pardon me, I'll talk about my life as an alumni, which is a little weird to say. But WBB, I didn't really know what to expect, right? Because it's such a unique program and there's nothing else like it in the entire world. But I knew it was going to be in the best way a challenge. And it was a challenge from an educational standpoint, it was a challenge from a professional standpoint, it was a challenge from a geographical standpoint. But WBB has exceeded every single expectation that I could have ever had for it. I mean, I've met incredible people. I live in an amazing city now. From a professional standpoint, I've been very fortunate that the program has enabled me to do what I love and find a job that I really enjoy. And in that regard, WBB has met, and like I said, exceeded every single expectation. In terms of why Asia, WBB, the fact that I'm in Hong Kong, I owe to the World Bachelor in Business program. Otherwise, I probably would have stayed, probably a kilometer away from my childhood home in Colorado. WBB really instilled a challenge in me of enjoying being out of my comfort zone and allowed me to find a job in Asia. And Carmen and Professor Nason do an exceptional job of connecting all students and alumni with professional opportunities, both in the region and abroad as well. And so, WBB has allowed me truly to be where I love in life and to be in Hong Kong. From a professional standpoint, WBB is the array of classes that it offers are amazing. So you have experience in marketing, in finance, in law, and we have students. I think where students end up working is a testament to how well WBB prepares you from a professional standpoint. So some of my friends also work in banking, some in sales and trading, some in consulting, some in fashion. Truly any industry or company that you could think of, I guarantee you there's most likely a WBB there or very close, which is amazing. And WBB has enabled me to explore a lot of my passions, both inside and outside the classroom. And finally, I guess my advice to prospective students, I think about this a lot, and sometimes it can be hard, but I think it's important to be yourself in the application, because WBB does such an amazing job of selecting students who mesh well together as a cohort. And I would give you the same advice that the director gave to me when I was selecting my school, and that is, WBB is not for everybody. It's challenging, it's unique, but at the same time, if after this presentation you feel inspired and you feel like WBB is something that interests you, please apply. We have students come from all different backgrounds, all different schools, ranging from some of the best top performing international schools around the entire world to like me coming from a public high school from a small, a small city in the US. And so if it interests you, I encourage you to apply, be yourself in your application, let your interests and your personality shine through, because WBB does a great job of selecting students who are driven and passionate, but also good human beings and who will, make a lasting and massive impact on the world. But that's my presentation. And now I'll pass it off back to Professor Nason to do some Q&A, hopefully for you guys.
Great. Thank you, Dylan. Thank you, Kelly and Nicole. So let me start addressing some of the questions that have come through chat. If you have questions for any of the students, I think they would be happy to take your questions as well. So first of all, I'm looking through the chat here. The admission scores for A-levels and DSE. WBB usually has comparable academic admission scores as the GBUS program. So at least 3 A's if you're taking the A-levels, often more. For DSE, the median is 50, 48 is in the lowest quartile. In terms of career statistics, well, I did mention that 100% of WBB students have had at least one internship. Over 70% have had multiple internships in multiple continents. Or you can be like Dylan and have had work experience in 4 different continents, which is also not heard of. Upon graduation, the WBB students roughly, it varies every year, but roughly about 30% end up going into consulting. Because of the focus on critical thinking, WBB students are particularly attractive to big consulting firms, and they tend to make really good offers. So we have the WBB students go to the big firms. You think of McKinsey in New York, BCG. We have a bunch that go to BCG in Dubai every year, of all places. Also consulting firms in Europe. In fact, one year I was told by the undergraduate dean at USC that more WBB students got offers at McKinsey than the rest of the University of Southern California combined. So we are attractive. That about usually a third of the students go into finance, investment banking and such. And then the other 40% or so just go into all places. If you remember the slide that we showed you, we've had students that have taken jobs in SpaceX, Google, all the big consulting firms, all the banks, including HSBC, some in marketing, just a whole wide range of different types of professions. We can't report average salary because of legal issues with USC, but I can say the average salaries of the WBB students are among the highest or the highest of any program at the 3 universities. Let's see. What else? I saw some other.
There is a question on test optional policy.
Oh yeah, so the test, so it will be test optional for this current year and the following year, at least. And then we will revisit whether SAT will become required again. But so for you guys, it will be test optional. There is a language requirement. When you're in Hong Kong, you take Chinese. And of course, you take the Chinese that's appropriate to your level. When you're in Italy, you'll take introductory Italian, unless you already speak Italian, and then you can choose a second European language. other than English. All right, so let's see what else. So I talked about the language. Okay, so we had a question on the tuition. So once again, here is the current tuition at the 3 schools and the housing. Each university provides at least university housing. Although by the time the students go to Bocconi, a lot of them choose to get apartments on their own in the city. They team up together with roommates and choose to do that, but they can get university dorms as well. So WBB is a self-funded program. I had a question about how many years do you spend at each school? So you spend at least 1 year at each university. Everyone spends the first year at USC, the second year at HKUST, the third year at Bocconi. The fourth year, you go back to whichever school you like the most, or whichever school that's in the region where you perhaps you want to start your career. So you will spend 2 years at one of the universities and 1 year at each of the other universities. Yep. So SAT is optional for this year. So if you don't have SAT, you can still apply. The financial aid, the only financial aid we offer specifically for WBB is merit-based. So it is, and it's based as a percentage of your tuition. Usually a quarter of your tuition or half of the tuition. And like I said, about a third or 40% of the students usually end up with some kind of scholarship.
And actually, Professor Nason, if you don't mind me adding on to that,
Go ahead.
The faculty at all 3 schools, in addition to the merit scholarships offered, do an amazing job of sourcing and informing students about private scholarships as well that are unique to each university. So a lot of my friends, obviously are on have received a scholarship or have been able to apply for private scholarships, whether that be at USC, HKUST, or Bocconi, that has helped them out financially as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So every year at HKUST, when the students are here, we have 5 or 6 additional scholarships, which range from, at the low end, 20,000 Hong Kong up to 100,000 Hong Kong for different things. But okay. How about, did I miss any questions?
I think there's something that I would like to add about the financial aid. So if you're a local Hong Kong student, you may also be eligible for the financial aid or the financial schemes that are offered by the Hong Kong government. So the Hong Kong government does offer some sort of financial aid or like loan system for local Hong Kong students who are studying in self-financing program. So if you're interested, you can go to our website and there would be more information about that as well. Of course, like Professor Nason mentioned, majority of the WBB scholarships would be based on your merit, but we do recommend students, no matter where you're from, you can try to see if you can, if your country of origin provides financial aid as well. As quite a number of our students actually come to the program with some sort of financial aid as well.
Are there any other questions? We still have 7 minutes.
I think there is one question about the application. So when does it start? So maybe we can have a very quick recap on the application timeline. And so, and maybe the application deadline.
Sure, you want to go back to that slide?
Yep,
so
sure.
The application deadline for WBB is December 1st. Oh, just passed it. December 1st. So December 1st is the deadline for applying to the WBB program. So we need your full package in by December 1st. And then in December and January, we start looking at the package. We look at interviews and we invite students back for interviews in January, and we make our decision by April 1st. And it's on sort of the North American system. So it is a full decision. It's not a conditional offer. This is a complete offer based on all the information we have.
And one thing to add is that for students who are applying this year, the application is actually open now. So you can actually start completing and filing in your application. And for students who are applying in future cohorts, every year we actually start our application on 1st of August and it will close on December 1st. So every year it's the same. So.
Okay, we have a question from Jasmine. Tips on how to stand out. Oh, what a good question for any application. Yes, because there are lots of applications. So how do you stand out? I mean, the normal things like, good grades, good test scores, all of that. Good letters of recommendation. If you're serious about WBB, we're happy to talk to you. I think everyone here is in Hong Kong. We're happy to meet with you, to show you around the university, talk in person about the WBB program. Anything interesting that you have done, extracurricular activities. We are really looking for people who are going to blossom in this kind of very international program. And as Dylan said, WBB is not for everyone. It is very international. I mean, think about it. When you join WBB, your first year is at USC. And as soon as you start learning how things work at USC and you get used to the American education system and stuff, suddenly the whole cohort is picked up and they come to Hong Kong. And you have to learn all over again, different style of education, getting around Hong Kong, all of this. And as soon as you become comfortable with that, you move to Bocconi. A lot of people really love this. They love this internationalism. When they're at Bocconi, they travel around to different European countries on the weekends. When they're in Hong Kong, the WBB cohort, well, this is before COVID, of course, but would spend a weekend or two a month at different cities in Asia, but it's not for everyone. Some people would just prefer to be at one place for 4 years. So we're really looking for people who will blossom in this kind of environment. Okay.
Maybe before we end the session, we have 2 more minutes. So Dylan kind of gave a tips on how to stand out in the application process, but maybe we can get Kelly and Nicole to share one tips from their experience on how they stand out in the process and get admitted to the program. So.
Maybe I could go first. I definitely really recommend Dylan's advice on really being yourself. I think that's really a strong way how to make your application shine, to really be authentic. I think an advice I would give is to, as you mentioned before, the program requires students to move around to 3 different universities. And so it's a very different lifestyle than what perhaps a student who stays at one university might expect. So I think it's really important to consider if this lifestyle is really something, and this kind of learning style is something that you're really looking forward to, and if it's really suitable for you. And maybe you can think about which experiences you've had in the past that really highlight how you are really like you can adapt quickly, or like you're a strong learner, you have strong critical thinking skills, as Professor Mason mentioned. I think highlighting that these experiences will really help show how you are a great fit for the World Bachelor Business program. And if you're interested, please check this program out. I kind of recommend it highly enough, and I'm sure it's something that it's a really unique experience that you might have as well. Now I'll pass on to Nicole.
Yes, I really agree with Kelly's point. And I think to stand out in the WBB application, you really have to show the unique side of yourself. So WBB is not just looking for students who are like very top performers in academics and so on, but we're looking for people who are doing really well in their own strengths, like their own area. So for example, in my cohort, we have people that are really diverse. Some are like really like professional football players. Some are very good at sports. Some are really, some are like, I know an American who's very good at Chinese. So I think you just show whatever you're passionate about, whatever you're interested in, and your unique personality will shine through the application and attract us.
Okay. I think we have just gone through the time. Oh, I see one more question. Are the applications for WBB and HK separate? Yes, they are totally separate, and you will not be put at any disadvantage if you go through one or the other. WBB, you apply through the Common App at USC. You list WBB as your first choice, and then I'll see your application. If you apply to some program at HKUST, then you apply through the normal way at HKUST, and I won't see that at all. And they won't see your application. And a lot of times we have people who apply for like WBB and GBUS at the same time, and both programs make their own decision. Okay, well, we are out of time. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Good luck. I know this is an exciting time. You get to choose your university and think about where you want to go and what you want to be. So good luck with all your decisions. And please reach out to us if you have any further questions. Thank you very much.